Welcome, true believers. Welcome, fans of Geekshow, friends of Geekshow. It's time for the Last of Us deep dive.
Are we? Oh, I guess we should have figured this out beforehand. Are we doing a twofer?
We're doing a twofer because I was sick last week. We had a lot of stuff going on.
He had a cordyceps, right?
I had the cordyceps, the cordyceps virus.
There it is.
Clicker. He's a clicker.
I was a clicker for a few days. I'm back though.
Were you more of a shambler?
No, I was. Yeah, I don't move fast.
See, what I like about this is that because y'all have played the game, and I have not.
I only played until the daughter died, and I said
That's the first 10 minutes.
That is like the first 10 minutes.
And guess what I had in my house at exactly that moment? A child of that age.
Yeah,
And I said nope and stopped.
so I just think this is fascinating because I'm not. I don't have an opinion as far as the game goes. I'm just watching a really good show that is honestly one of the best TV shows I've seen in a long time.
It's really good.
It's so damn good. We look forward to it. We watch it on Mondays. We look forward to it every Monday that it's on.
Oh, yeah.
It's the first thing. I get home, I get my chores done, and we sit down and we watch the show. You know,
Gotta get your choring
Get
done.
your chores done.
I got to feed the
You're
cows and
Yeah. Clean the toilet, that kind of stuff.
haul the hay, get it out there.
I've been doing what I call the farming every day. I do my morning farming routine where I feed all the animals, I clean up all their poop, I clean up the kitchen. I call it my farming.
And then you watch the show. All
And
right.
then I watch my shows.
Yep. So
Let's
we got
begin.
episode 6 and episode 7 for this deep dive. We're gonna start with episode 6 because it comes before episode 7.
And episode 6. But also here's the thing. The thing about episode 6 is immediately after episode 5, which is probably the most traumatizing thing I've ever experienced in my whole life.
5, 6, 7. I get it.
Yes, and thrown off these numbers.
Where were you going? You were heading somewhere.
And the end of
think he was
episode
headed to
5, Henry and Sam meet
Yep.
their untimely end, and episode 6 begins and doesn't let you forget. And they open with that scene of Henry,
it's
and I'm like,
brutal.
"Why would you do this to me again?"
But then they show us the greatest couple in the history of television.
Yeah, they do a 3-month later's time jump.
3 months
And-
later,
And
I love those two.
They were the best.
I absolutely loved this 10-minute scene in the show. It might be my favorite part of the show so far.
yeah,
You
well,
have-
because it's all these two are not in the game. They're a
Yeah.
fun TV show edition.
Yeah, you have
Yes.
2 characters, a married couple named Marlon and Florence, Native American. Marlon played by Graham Greene. If you know who that is, then you know who that is.
He's
a
very
legend.
funny. Legend.
Graham-
He's very funny dude. He does
He's
stand
awesome. Yep, Graham
up.
Greene.
And she was on Northern Exposure. As I
Yep,
recall.
Florence, played by Elaine Miles.
Yeah.
And it's basically just this old couple, and you find out
Love 'em.
very very quickly that they don't care.
No.
Yeah.
They've been by themselves now for a long time.
I
way
feel
before.
like they've been on their own since even before.
That's
the
what they said.
outbreak.
They said we moved out here before everything went to hell, and we liked being away from everyone, and here we are.
It's the first time my wife said, "Oh yeah, I could actually see that being an appealing part of a zombie outbreak." I was like, "Yeah, we'll just live out in the middle of nowhere and
Yeah.
not care anymore."
My favorite line. He walks in and she's sitting in a rocking chair, and basically, we got visitors, whatever, and then he says, "You didn't even pull a gun on him." She says, "It was over there."
my favorite line is when Ellie is like, "What about the fireflies?" And she's like, "Oh, we get those in the summer."
Yes.
And she says, and Ellie's like, "No, the firefly people." And she's like, "There's firefly people?"
Firefly people.
So great.
She makes him soup. He says, "Oh, you made him soup, huh?" And she's like, "Yeah, I made him soup. It's cold outside." And she's being held at gunpoint.
And my favorite line is from him was when he looks at her and says, "Did you tell him the truth?"
He's like, did you lie to him?
Yep.
Did you lie to me?
Yeah.
to me?
Yeah. Oh, just a fantastic scene.
And it's such a great kind of like, we've lost so much of that because of our interdependence on social media and technology and whatever else. And it's like I'm watching these guys going, no, they're living. Everybody else is trying to bring back this garbage we're living in right now.
I did think it was rude of Ellie to steal one of their rabbits.
She stole. Yep. They fed him. They fed him, and then they went on their way. And on the way out, Ellie grabs one of the rabbits that Graham Greene's character had just captured.
Rude. Just rude.
So
Well, Ellie's not really one for manners, as we learn later on in this episode too, because they're in Wyoming, and Wyoming's a big place, and so trying to find one person in a really large place is going to be difficult. And so Joel asks about things west of the river and what's the best way west to get west of the river, and he says go east because nothing that goes that way comes back.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
River of Death.
But also, this is the first instance too where we see Joel have a panic attack.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I don't exactly remember what sets it off.
Panic.
In this first time. Well,
I think the zombie epidemic probably set him off.
It's because they've been together for over 3 months now, and he's realizing that he cares for Ellie.
Yeah.
And he's starting to worry about what will happen to her, and wants to keep her safe. And he has massive PTSD from everything that happened to his daughter back 20 years ago.
Having his daughter shot out from under him.
Yeah.
Is this also the episode where they find they camp overnight and they start talking about what their dream would be?
Yeah.
And his is he wants to be a musician, but then he changes his mind and wants to be a shepherd. And Ellie starts to talk about her fascination with space and astronauts, and she wants to be an astronaut. And bit of a spoiler alert for the second game. This was a really cool instance for me personally, because I watched episode 6 and I knew that she was into space or whatever. But then I played far enough into The Last of Us Part 2 where it shows a flashback, and Joel, I'm going to cry. Joel takes her to a natural history museum, and that's just an abandoned natural history museum. And she's like, wow, dinosaurs, cool. But then they go up to the second level and it's all space. And she's like, space. And they get into a little shuttle and she puts on a helmet. And it just it really helped Bella Ramsey's performance in the episode where she talks about Sally Beep and Ride. Yeah. And then to see it in the game, I was like, this is so
Bravo.
To say. Just fantastic stuff. It's so good.
So they leave the couple that deserve their own show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seriously. Give us a spin-off.
They travel for several days.
They make it to Jackson.
And
they're going to Jackson.
This is when they're confronted. You and I know that song, Rebecca.
I used to play in it. I used to DJ a country AM country station.
That's right. And then they're suddenly surrounded by, we don't know, bad guys, probably bad guys, because everybody's bad guys.
They got scarves on their faces. They're all bundled up on their horses,
and they got a cordyceps sniffing dog.
Yep, and these are the people you assume that the couple was talking about. Anyone that goes west, you never hear from them again.
River of Death.
And that's when the lead person there asks, what's your name?
Well, because Joel is like, I'm looking for my brother.
Yeah.
And Maria, who we learn later is Tommy's wife, she's like, oh, my husband has a brother that he won't shut up about. She doesn't say that, but she's like, what's your name? And he's like, Joel. But also the cordyceps sniffing dog, Joel has a second panic attack because Ellie tests positive. We know that Ellie tests positive on a scanner.
With the scanner, yeah.
And so we don't know what's going to happen when the dog sniffs Ellie. So he starts to have another panic attack and he freezes in place and there's nothing he can do. Turns out everything's okay. Ellie and the dog get on like gangbusters. But Joel is starting to realize he can't. He can't.
He's pretty convinced that he's not the guy for the job.
Yeah.
Yep. Because he knows he's freezing. In tense situations, his anxiety attacks and things are to the point now where he becomes what he feels to be useless.
And that's the main thing that we learn in this episode is his doubts.
Yep.
And, and you just want to go, you're Pedro Pascal, you'll be fine.
You can do anything, my friend.
Yeah.
But they get back to the town, and
Who does he see?
He
right
sees Tommy.
there? He sees Ghost Rider. Or
does see
the
Ghost
guy,
Rider.
the guy that played Ghost Rider
Robbie Reyes?
on
Robbie
Shield
Reyes.
is
It's Robbie
also Tommy.
But the interesting distinction between the show and the game in this particular moment that I learned from listening to the podcast, take a drink, is in the game, Joel and Tommy, there's a bit of hesitancy between them. Whereas in the show, Joel yells his brother's name, jumps off the horse, and immediately runs towards his brother. And something else that I noticed in this, and they talk about it in the podcast as well, take another drink, is Ellie has a look of jealousy on her face because this whole time Joel has been hers.
Right.
And now Joel is not only hers anymore.
Yep.
And you can see it on her face. There's jealousy there.
Yeah, it's like when we expanded the podcast out to more than just me and Carrie.
Lee's on his horse like,
I hope you get stabbed by a broken baseball bat, Kerry Jackson.
Hey, we're getting there.
It's an interesting dynamic between these two because there's again I've not played the game so I don't know, but there's a lot of mileage there. There's a lot of things that have happened that we don't know about.
Yep,
We've
a lot
killed
of
people,
baggage.
you know.
Yep.
Well, and I think the big umbrella on their relationship is Joel has always had to save Tommy. Joel has always had to come to Tommy's rescue. And now that he's done it again, he's found Tommy. Tommy's doing better than ever.
Yeah,
And
Tommy
so
doesn't need to be rescued right now.
What's Joel's purpose in all this? What has he even been doing this whole time? Tommy's been thriving.
That sheep ranch sounds like a good idea right about now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we spend probably 10 or 15 minutes kind of just getting to know what the town is like, Jackson, what
they define communism, and Tommy has a look of, oh no.
We're not communists. No, we are literally communists.
We are
live
literally
on a commune.
But it works in small scale. I mean, that's just
See, there you go.
In some instances, it's all right, you know.
And Ellie gets her first hot shower in who knows how long.
We got it. The game,
And
the
there's-
show.
And
Okay,
there's
so
a Diva Cup. And
My wife wants us to talk about that.
I know I waxed poetic about it when she found a box of tampons, but when Maria gives her a Diva Cup, I was like, yes, because it's sustainable. You can use it over and over again, and nobody ever talks about this in apocalypse movies. Nobody ever thinks about the women, what we have to go through. We're only focused on like, oh, why are their armpits shaved? Why do they look like they have a full face of makeup? Nobody's talking about their periods.
And in a pinch, it's the perfect size for a shot glass. So
Sure.
If you're listening to this, I just want you to go to YouTube and search Sherman's Showcase Diva Cup. It's not obscene. It's funny. Anyway,
there are a lot.
Periods
of
are
things
not
we don't-
obscene. Periods are not obscene. We got it. We got
it's
to
the way of
normalize
life,
this.
you know?
They
There are
are
a lot of-
51% of the population deals with this.
Yep.
Yeah, and we just don't want to talk about it because
And that's-
It's not
people
gross, you
get
guys.
so squeamish about it. And why, right?
yeah, exactly.
Women.
That was my wife she was just as elated as you when that came up. I just thought, that's terrific, and I like that it had instructions as well because
Yeah, and she was. Because that's what you do when you get one for the first time. You read the instructions and you test it out, and you're like, "Oh, how
You
bizarre!"
squeeze it.
You squeeze it, and you're like, "Oh, you just fold it up and
you pour a
pop
shot.
it on up." And
yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah, so she gets to see what maybe her first was it her first movie? I don't know if it was her first movie. But
I don't think it was her first movie, but like the town has a movie center.
They have general store. They have electricity. They have hot water. I mean, it's civilization.
But
Booze.
so
As it
there's
used
a
to be.
conversation that they're having like in a cafeteria where they're first like Maria and Tommy and Joel and Ellie are all like first congregating, and Ellie is rude.
Yeah.
Because I think she's jealous and a little protective of Joel, and then we see a girl in the back like kind of like staring.
Yeah, peeking
right?
around the corner.
And Ellie's like,
thing.
"What are you looking at?" And she goes away, and everyone's like, "Dina," because Dina is a character in the second video game.
Yeah.
Who's a big deal.
They didn't say for sure that it's Dina, but the internet
Dina
pretty
deal?
much believes that it's Dina.
Yeah.
Did the internet figure out which movie they were watching? I think it was The Goodbye Girl.
Figure it out.
The podcast said so.
The what?
And, yeah, thank you. I can't remember, but I think you're right. The Goodbye Girl.
I think it was The Goodbye Girl. It
Was
was
it Barbara Streisand and
it was Dreyfus.
and Dreyfus.
And Glenda Jackson. I
Oh,
want to
wasn't
say.
Barbara Streisand?
I don't think
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I
The
could be
Goodbye
wrong.
Girl, verified in this article.
so.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Say Neil
But
Simon
also,
play.
before they do go to the movie, Maria, takes some time to, mother Ellie as well. Gives her a haircut, gives her clothes.
Which I thought was so nice of her. And even
But
though Ellie was
also-
being a jerk,
But Maria's also a hard ass, right?
Yeah.
Because she's like, "There's a lot you're not telling me. Good. Know where to put your trust in people, but like."
I
Get your
liked her
act
a
together.
lot. I like that
Oh,
character
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
And the actress, she was in True Blood, and I've always liked
Oh,
her.
is that her?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of
Suki's friend.
It's a
I've always liked her.
fascinating thing to look at, though, is okay because we get into this in the next episode, which I will not spoil. But when you get into how Ellie was raised and what her background is, how is somebody who is raised in that way going to react in a positive societal
Yeah,
setting
for
where
sure.
people are getting
She's
along
like she's
and
gonna
things
be
are
like
good?
a feral dog, right?
Uh-huh.
Like
Not only is
she's
she going to be a feral dog, she's going to be actually exactly like a feral dog. Who's going to hurt me here?
Yep.
This is too good to be true. Someone
Yeah.
here has an
it's
ankle. Someone's
literally
going to hurt me.
it's literally how I felt at two instances. The all-female showing of Wonder Woman and the Magic Mike show, because it was all catered specifically towards me, a woman, and I was like, when's it gonna be for the men? And it wasn't, and so I didn't know, I was very
Didn't know how to
protective. Didn't know how to react. But the other thing I want to point out about Maria in particular is above Tommy and Maria's mantelpiece, there's a chalkboard that has 2 birth and death dates, one for her son and one for Sarah. And
Yep.
it's really interesting to see the differences between Joel and Maria and how they have channeled their grief. Maria has really channeled everything into building a society and caretaking, whereas Joel has really shut down and just focused
and
on
that's-
himself and
And
survival.
that's where Ellie first learns that Joel had a daughter.
Yep.
And she feels, I think, a little betrayed at that point because they've been through so much together, but you haven't shared this with me.
And in this episode, Joel has another panic attack moment when he sees a young girl from behind that looked like his daughter
curly
from
hair.
behind
Yeah.
with the curly
that
Because
hair.
of her immaculate head of hair. It looks just like
wasn't
Sarah. But then he also has a moment where he kind of lets himself daydream because this woman also has a daughter. And it's been 20 years. He
would have
if
been
Sarah had survived, he could very well be a grandfather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm
And-
supposed to be a great grandfather by now, but anyway.
Ew. Ugh.
But no, that was a beautiful scene. I thought it was just absolutely. And again, Pedro Pascal, without saying a word, just conveys the emotions beautifully. Hell of an actor.
And I
So-
think he and Tommy, their relationship through this episode too, when they first go to the bar, it's very confrontational and kind of antagonistic.
yeah.
But then later, Joel tucks himself away like a dad would, right? Like when you're facing too much emotions, you're just going to tuck yourself away in the shed and do work on tools. And he opens up to Tommy about. And I texted my friends with a picture of an Emmy, and I'm like, "Here you go, King. Like you have this," because he opens up about his emotions and how he can't do this.
Such a great scene. Just amazing. Saying, "I can't take her. You've got to take her. I'm having doubts."
And begs Tommy to take her, and Tommy's
and-
like, I can't.
And Tommy's like, "Yeah," but then he
I'm gonna be a
relents
dad.
and says,
Yeah.
"All right, I'll be there in the morning, and we'll go."
Yep.
And Ellie not happy about this at all, of course.
So,
Ellie,
yeah, she-
Ellie in so Joel goes to talk to her. She's in a house that has a teenage girl's bedroom, and she's reading a diary. She's like,
Yeah.
"Is this what people worried about? Like
Yeah.
boys and movies and clothes and
That was a great,
all this
great,
meaningless stuff. Yeah.
all this
great bit of
meaningless stuff.
writing there. Yeah.
And the scene that follows is a direct lift from the video game. It's a very iconic scene. It's something that people were like, it's a very, very, very iconic scene. And even Neil Druckmann was like, I want the wallpaper to be the same. I want as much similarities as possible, but without making it a one-to-one, because the thing that the showrunners also really want to emphasize is this is not a direct copy. This
Right.
is a version. This is a different version of the same story, and we want the actors to be able to make it their own, and they do. And it's, I have chills
It's-
talking about it. It's just such a good emotional scene.
Yeah, like I
Because-
said, it's one of the best TV shows I've seen in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So they
go to bed, wake up the
plan
next
on
day, and they go. Tommy picks her up. She gets a new coat
Yep.
and a super freaking plum or whatever.
Eggplant.
Eggplant. Yeah, and they get out to the stalls to take their horses, and who's there setting the horse up? It's Joel.
Joel.
Yep.
And they're
Joel-
like, we thought
and-
you weren't coming.
Yeah,
He's like,
and
well, I
Joel
wasn't.
says-
I was just here to steal a horse.
I came out to steal a horse. Tommy says, we would have given you one. He's like, I know. And that's when Joel
That's when it's
has
decided.
yeah,
I'll
he's
go.
like, okay, I'll go.
Well,
if
no,
you-"
he's like, he says, Ellie, you deserve a choice. And Ellie
Yeah.
doesn't even think about it. She's like, let's go. And
Yeah.
gives her back to Joel and doesn't even
just
think
like
about
that.
it.
No
So
pause,
they-
no nothing.
So they head to the university where these fireflies are supposed to be to help take her blood and turn it into some kind of
Yep.
serum of
Well,
some
not
kind.
only that,
And-
too. This is, Joel is opening up to Ellie, I think, too. He's teaching her about football
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
concept of football. And she asks him what he did in the before four.
I was a
And he's like, I was a
contractor.
contractor. She's like, that sounds the contractor. And he's like, he drops a line that's like, everybody loves contractors. And I was
Yeah.
like, bah!
Nope.
Oh, yeah, we were heroes before. So, yeah, we were the best.
Way to write your own history. Well
Yeah,
done.
seriously.
So they make it to the university, and right away I could tell there was trouble.
Yeah, it's completely deserted looking, and well,
the
it's not
biblical
quite deserted.
harbinger of doom is there. Monkeys.
Yeah,
Monkeys. Roman monkeys.
And I love how
yeah.
immediately he's just like, "Oh, they must be lab monkeys from being tested on." And I'm like, "Why? What?
I'm like,
how
okay.
would you know that?"
Well, but if that's the case, Joel, why are they loose and running around wild? I don't think your doctors are here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so they start exploring the campus and basically discover, everything's gone. It's been deserted for a while.
And they've left a trail, some sort of a trail on a whiteboard of some kind that says,
Yeah.
we're headed to Salt Lake City,
Salt Lake City,
To
exactly.
St. Mary's in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
which I don't
so-
think is real.
In the
This is a
video
different
game,
reality.
St. Mary's is right next to the temple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The geography, the city placement in the game is just like,
Their
I watched-
representation of Salt Lake is so funny
I was gonna
because
say,
their hockey team is called like the Snakes or something.
yeah.
You say there's a Howard Johnson's next to the temple, but
So
Anyway.
they decide, okay, well, that's where we'll go. And on their way out, they get confronted
They are
by
not
some
alone. They
marauders.
are not alone.
And
Marauders.
they fight the marauders. And
Yes.
Joel ends up taking one out.
Stab it.
But in the process, a broken baseball bat handle gets shoved through his torso. Now, in
Which-
the game,
First time I've seen that in a movie.
in the game, wasn't a piece of rebar. I think.
No, this was an amazing change that they made. It feels a lot more realistic because in the video game, you can survive anything. So in Joel falls off a second floor and lands on a piece of rebar. And
That's what it
impales
was.
him.
Okay, yeah.
And where I like the change that they made in the show because it feels more realistic. If Pedro Pascal was to fall off and land on a piece of rebar, I mean, Charisma Carpenter did it
yeah.
in Buffy.
okay.
She survived.
She just fell down some stairs. She didn't.
But I liked this change that they did make it because it feels less life threatening. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
well,
it's still bad.
it does until they show the wound.
Yeah.
They show the wound, and it's like, holy cow, that is gnarly.
Well, listen, we've got to move on because this next episode has got so much
Yeah.
to talk
The
about.
DLC, the DLC
This
episode.
is the DLC episode. So,
So they make it to a house, and and Joel says, "Leave me.
Yeah.
You've got to go. Leave me. Go back and get Tommy. Leave me."
Devastating. Go back to Jackson. Just live your life in Jackson.
And
And
so-
Ellie goes to the door and pauses and ooh, flashback. Pearl Jam
Yeah.
plays. We're
The-
at a gymnasium.
So now this is the downloadable content part of the game. So this is
Yes,
Yes.
and no.
okay.
Because if I recall correctly, isn't the DLC just in the mall?
um,
Oh no, it's at their
no,
room.
it's pretty much the whole DLC.
but the gym is new. Like her whole interaction with Bethany and officer.
Okay,
officer,
that
I think
part's
that's
new.
all new.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
you're
that's
right.
TV show, so
Yeah, they added that. They added that to give some context to.
Yeah.
because she's being trained to be part of the government.
Yeah, she's
group.
she's gonna be part of
That's where they
Ferda.
send all the orphans. I think that's
Yeah.
where they just send all the orphans to
Yeah,
go
they
work
become-
with Fedra.
Yeah.
Just like Shinra in Final Fantasy.
Because the
VII,
other
man.
thing too,
Ferda.
and they talk about this in the podcast, is they spend a lot of time in the show talking about how evil Fedra is, how bad Fedra is. But this episode provides another context of Fedra's not that bad. There's a reason Fedra has made it for as long as they have, because they are quite successful in what they do.
Yep.
Being
Organization and discipline.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
She's being trained, how to use guns. She's being trained about all this stuff, and she's going to get a position soon. And we find out that she was there with a friend,
And her friend has disappeared.
and her friend has disappeared, but then suddenly comes back.
Yeah, she shows
And,
up in her room.
The actor who plays her, they're both just so damn good. Again, give all the Emmys to this show because they're-
She's Idris's Elba daughter in Suicide Squad.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. She's so good, and she shows up in the middle of the night and says, "Yeah, let's go have some fun." And we find out that she's been training with the Fireflies.
Yep.
Not as
Marlene
intense a
scooped her
training
up.
as Fedra, but being trained by the Fireflies. And
Something fun to note is Riley she said, I got my first assignment and it was sewage detail. And if you remember in the first episode, Joel was like, what work do you have? And they're like, well, sewage detail, but it's literally the worst job you could have.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why Riley was like, okay, never mind. I'm going to go join the Fireflies.
Yeah.
But that's where we learn that these two have known each other for a while. They've trained together, and her friend has decided that I'm going to give you a fun night before.
Perfect night. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
perfect night.
I'm leaving.
Because I'm leaving. I'm going to, where was it, Atlanta, I think she said.
Yeah, the Atlantic UZ.
Yeah. And they do have this wonderful time in
they
this
go
mall.
to an old mall, obviously abandoned, run down because everything is. And but she knew going in, her friend, that the power still worked in the mall.
Because they
Well,
just
she'd been-
established that part of the grid.
Well, we've been
Because they
staying-
reestablished that part
Yeah.
of the grid in the
and
city.
and she had apparently been staying there as well.
Yep.
And that's the thing too. She has planned this evening for Ellie. You can
Yep.
tell she's put in a lot of work and effort. They even talk about it when they get to the arcade later. She's like, I spent an hour on this change machine trying to get it open so that we could play this game.
What's
but
so brilliant too is that setting it in a mall means that you can use the names of all of those businesses that were dependent on malls to be in business because they're all out of business. So a lot of those
Victoria's
shops
Secret's
that-
out of business?
No, but a lot of the other shops that they were walking by are long out of business, so they were able to use. I'm sure Victoria's Secret paid to have their brand in that episode, but all these other like crappy mall stores that were open in the late 80s and early 90s, they had them there. I mean, I'm almost certain this was an abandoned mall.
More than likely.
I'd love to know.
Fun production note that I learned from the podcast. It was an abandoned mall. It was scheduled for demolition, and they essentially just gave them the keys and said, "Do whatever you want to this mall."
That's how
and
you get that authentic abandoned mall look is by using an
But
abandoned mall.
the thing about it was a single level mall. And so they had to build a fake second level so that they could have the
okay.
escalators.
Yeah.
Oh,
And but also for like there's like a visual too of that first time Ellie steps out into the mall and the lights come up.
Yep.
That shot, you could only be done from a second floor, and they had to build a second floor for that.
Right.
it's funny how you can work these things in when you find out that there's an abandoned mall. There's that scene in the that scene in the Blues Brothers only happened because they found out while they were filming there's an abandoned mall. They're going to tear it down. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I've been in an abandoned mall and they got it really well. They did a really good job with it.
I just thought it was great because her fascination with moving stairs. She had never
Yeah.
seen moving stairs.
Magical stairs. That's
it's-
wonder number
Yeah,
one.
it's
Yep.
little
The
things
second-
like that make this show great. Is the
Yeah.
way
The
that she
second
responds
wonder.
to seat belts, moving stairs, things like that.
The carousel, it lights up, it starts to move, and Ellie's like, "What is
Oh
happening?"
my goodness. Yeah.
It plays a rockabye baby version of Depeche Mode's "Just Like Heaven."
Yeah.
No, it cures just like heaven.
My bad.
Oh, man.
It's okay.
The last episode ended with the Depeche Mode.
Yes.
And then when they get to the arcade, just Ellie's.
And what I thought was great about that is because I don't think she's ever played the game. Clearly, she had
She
the
knows
poster
about
in
it.
her. She had a poster in her room for Mortal Kombat 2.
Right.
But she had never
She's
played the
probably
game.
read the magazine guide.
That's the thing. They talk about it in the podcast. They talk about how one of the things that's a collectible in this post-apocalyptic world are video game magazines, and so that's how they even know how to play the game in the first place, is because they've memorized like the video game magazines.
But just such a great scene of those two having what they don't know is their last night together. And then they go to the Halloween store and all that fun stuff. And
But
then
they also don't know that they are not alone.
They're
not
not
alone.
making too much damn noise.
Yep, that's
Making
what happens.
noise.
Damn
When-
noise.
When you crank the music and dance around in Halloween masks in the Halloween store,
gonna
inevitably,
You're gonna wake
A
up the creepy
clicker.
guy who was living in the American Girl store.
yeah, extra creepy.
an interesting choice.
I'm here to buy Blair. Oh no, zombie outbreak. I'm down with my Blair doll.
doll?
Well, guess I'll just sit down here,
I
So
guess I'll
we-
just sit here and stare at Addie.
turn into fungus.
We have the inevitable, here he is. He's coming to get us. There's a fight. We kill him. And
Stabby, stabby, shooty.
Stabby,
Ooh,
shooty.
but the emotional build up to this though, Ellie and Riley share their first kiss, and
which
Riley
is beautiful.
and Ellie asks Riley not to go, and Riley's like, "Okay, I'll stay."
Yep,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
They have that
Live in this
wonderful moment.
zombie-infested mall.
In
Yeah.
the DLC, did they kiss in the DLC or did they not kiss? Okay, they did.
No,
I
they
couldn't
kissed in the
remember.
DLC.
Okay,
Oh, that's
yeah.
nice. And so we can't have nice things in these shows, of course. We can't have a nice relationship between these two because it's inevitably doomed.
The show
And-
punishes you. The show in the game punishes you for
Yeah.
for having a good moment.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
also, we get to find out that this is exactly 3 weeks before the first episode, because they say in the first episode that she was bit 3 weeks prior.
Oh,
so-
yeah. Good
Yeah.
catch. Yep.
And they're both bit. And I just thank God for the TV show not showing me what happened.
Yep.
Oh, see, here's the thing, because the video
just-
game doesn't show you either.
Yeah, I don't know if I could handle that.
They have this lovely conversation where Riley is like, "Let's lose our minds together,"
Yep.
and Riley, who has experienced loss, just sits very quietly. Whereas Ellie, who's never experienced loss or heartbreak or anything like this, gets so violent.
Wrecking the place, yeah.
She's wrecking the place, and Riley's like, "Let's lose our minds together." And the game doesn't show you what happens next. And I was so hoping the show would, because I want to see that so bad.
Oh,
I
don't
want to
wanna
see that
well,
devastation.
I don't want to see her have to kill Riley.
I was going to
I
say,
want
speaking
it.
as
I want it.
speaking as someone who's not played the game, I was
Bloodlust.
glad the TV show didn't do that to me. I couldn't take anymore. It was
But
just
you never
too
know.
much.
They might be saving that gut punch for later in another
But they,
flashback.
I don't
already,
know,
they
because
already played
Storm
with this,
Re-
though.
But Storm, because
already-
I checked the IMDb, and Storm Reed's only in the one episode.
They
Okay.
they played with us well enough to know they took the safety wheels off of them killing a kid, so we know that they could go there, and so
Yeah,
they
they could.
played us very masterfully, saying, "Oh, they're going to show us this girl dying that we've built up time caring about," and we know from other episodes that they have between an hour to 7 hours before they turn, so we know that they could have easily done that. So what they did was fantastic, is setting up that expectation of knowing that they don't worry about the safety rails of our sensibilities as consumers, that they could show us any of this and they just end it, and it's
Yeah.
perfect. It was the perfect ending.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
In my
yeah,
opinion.
I wouldn't have been able to handle that. Maybe
I
if
want
they-
as
if
much
they do
heartbreak
it-
and devastation as possible.
If they do it later, in episodes, enough time has passed that I might be okay. But if they would have
Yeah.
done it right then, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't
I'm
have-
just a little surprised that they haven't taken that. They didn't take that opportunity to show what Ellie's reaction is when she realizes she's not turning.
That's what I want. I want
And-
to see her panicking because it's not happening to me. When is it going to happen to me? And watching the love of her life just go before her
we
very
know.
eyes.
We kind of know what happens over the next period of time. They go and find the Fireflies because at some point they're like,
I'm
maybe
betting-
they can help us.
I'm
Because-
betting that the Fireflies found her.
Yeah,
I'm betting
right.
they
Oh,
came
had to, because that was
they
their
came-
outpost,
They
right?
came to check on the outpost. and
Yeah,
was-
Yeah.
all their
She's still there.
explosives and whatever else, and,
Yeah.
and so at some point someone found her because they have her.
Yeah.
Right.
So now the great thing about this flashback, it was all just juxtaposed with the things that are happening to us in the current timeline, and that is her being told by Joel, leave me. And she has to think it, and she stops at the top of the stairs, and that's when this episode kicks in. The bad things happen in the flashback. We come back. She realizes, I can't leave him.
Yep.
I'm not going to leave him.
And part of the reason for the whole flashback in the first place, too, is to show, because Riley also says, the end comes for us all. It just comes fast. It comes faster for some of us. But let's spend every minute we have together. And that's what Ellie is thinking about as she goes for the door, right? She's like, I could leave. I could go back to Jackson. But she loves Joel so much, she's going to fight for every minute they have.
Yep.
And that's where she starts tearing the house apart.
We get a scene where having had to do emergency triage on somebody in the past, I'm like, that's going to get infected so bad.
I thought
yeah.
the same thing too.
Well,
I was like,
that-
she didn't disinfect the needle with her lighter or anything. Didn't clean the wound. She just starts.
I mean, it's better
stitching
that
it
she
up.
sewed it up, but
But that's
holy cow.
literally the setup for the next episode,
Yeah.
because the next part in the game is her desperately on the hunt for antibiotics.
Yep.
And not only antibiotics, but like food for survival, just
Yep.
like things that they
next-
need to survive.
Yep.
The next episode is going to be a treat for fans of the game because it's going to be Joel on Joel action because
Yeah.
Troy Baker, who did the voice of Joel in the game, is playing one of the big bad guys from the game in this next episode.
Cool.
Is he the big bat, or is he like the
he's one of
right hand? Is he okay? David, I think is the name.
I didn't play the game, Rebecca. I'm just reporting what I was
Well,
told by
maybe
my
you
oldest
should.
child. No, it's too gloomy for me. I want to stay in the light.
Yeah. Look to the light.
Well, again, just still one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. Just amazing.
And the only complaints that you'll see on the internet are about episodes 3 and 7.
They're filler.
Why is that?
I wonder what, because they're filler. They're filler.
Yeah.
They don't
think-
move.
yeah.
They don't.
You guys
move
are
the
not
main,
allowed to use the word filler anymore.
They don't. They don't move the main plot along, but they absolutely move the character development along.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and that's
so
what's
it doesn't
some-
really count as filler.
there was no Easter eggs, and it didn't move the plot forward. I only learned about the characters, and I don't like the characters.
The interesting thing, and if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, I'm not saying this to pick on you at all, but the whole premise of The Walking Dead was they sat down when they were doing the comic and they said, let's explore what happens to a really good man when everything goes wrong. And The Last of Us is basically saying, let's explore what happens to everyone when everything goes wrong. And I think that makes the story so much more believable and lived in already.
And that's the thing. I can comment on this because I stayed with The Walking Dead until it ended.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that in these 7 episodes, we've had more character development between these two than we had in almost the entire series of Walking Dead TV show.
Boom.
I can't speak for the comic book, but I will speak for the TV show, and
the
that
comic
is
book did a lot of what the show is doing is basically let's build characters up so you care about them so we can kill them.
yeah.
And that's, Rick is really the only untouchable in the comic.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of Rick development. We got a lot of Carl development. We got some Maggie development, and
I'd say
Stephen
there was a
Yeun's
lot
character.
of Daryl development.
Daryl wasn't in the comic book, is the thing.
Oh, right. That's true.
That's the thing.
true.
Daryl
But
was
even
created
then-
for a very specific demographic of
Yeah,
viewer.
even then, we only know so much about Daryl.
Right.
Even after all these seasons, we only know so much about Daryl. I know more about Ellie than I know about Daryl. Ellie 7 episodes, Daryl 7 seasons.
And again, not a slam on Walking Dead. There have been plenty of good hours of Walking Dead television. Actually, their spin-off anthology show I think is really a lot of fun. But
it is. Yeah,
What's that one called?
Tales of the Walking Dead. I think.
Tales of the Walking Dead. There's a time travel episode that I absolutely adore. that I
A what
watched.
now?
Time
Okay,
travel.
I guess I got to watch this.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you, Patreons. Thank you, True Believers, for being here with us for this, and we'll keep going until season 1 is done.
That's right. See you next week.
I know.
Stay
right?
in the light, folks. Stay in the light.
I keep playing the second game, and I message Tony, and I'm like, they did this. I'm on the revenge train now.
And I
Tony's
keep
like,
telling
nobody
you-
listen to Tony.
I keep telling you to stop playing the game.
Rebecca,
Give
how
it a
many more?
break.
How many more episodes on your spreadsheet do we have of this? 2 more?
2.
Go smash.
So this next episode, you're gonna get
Some town in Canada is filling in for Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Well, no, you're gonna
That'll
get
be in the ninth episode.
It's like a ski lodge town, kind of. And you're gonna. I don't want to tell you what they are.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Don't say it.
People-
Don't
They're
say
bad
it.
people.
All right.
And then episode 9 will be Salt Lake City.
All right.
Nice.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see ya.